afternoon class. You have an idea of economics before? सबने पढ़ रखा है. What is the expectation फिर? Revision. So you all have an idea of what the syllabus is. What topics have to be prepared? What all topics? Indian economy. So for prelims, how important is Indian economy? Very important. अच्छा कौन सा पार्ट है जो थोड़ा कम important है? Anything you have an idea on what topics are important apart from Indian economy, and also in Indian economy what is important? Banking, okay. What is important? Monetary policy. Apart from that, banking. What do you mean by banking system? See, there are two parts to the syllabus. One part of the syllabus, so roughly 18 to 20 questions, 16 to 20 questions is the broad range of what UPSC asks in the economic section. Half of the paper is understanding how any economy works. What is GDP, how we measure the total production. The second part is how exactly the Indian economy is working. So there's a difference between what the general economy is working, that is what we study is the macroeconomics concepts. Micro is not a part of our syllabus, it's just the macroeconomics part. That is half of the paper, 8 to 9 questions of the total 16 to 20 would be from macroeconomics part, rest 8 to 9 would be from the Indian economy part. And the nature of questions from both those are different. How do we know all of this? Because we have seen in the last 15 years, this is the broad pattern which they have followed. Mains is not a very difficult thing to prepare for because mains they do not move away from the topics which they have mentioned in the syllabus. But in prelims it's slightly difficult because in prelims there's no defined syllabus. Previous year question or usi ke trend se we'll prepare the topic, understand the topic. Once we have the understanding, we'll be able to apply that knowledge and also would check the analysis part of it. Analysis not that important, but application is what is important. So what all topics are important? For prelims, the 16 to 18 questions. Half of the paper is understanding the economy, that is macroeconomics. This is understanding how the economy works. What are the topics to be covered in macroeconomy? And then the second part is Indian economy. Now what topics to be first covered in macroeconomics? Here we understand the basic working of any economy, and type of questions in macroeconomy are different from types of questions in Indian economy. Both topics and type is different. Now what are the types of questions that have to be covered here? Or first topics. First topic that is important here is the national income accounting. In this national income accounting, we'll get to know or understand different terms that exist in the economy. What is production, what is growth, what is development, what is human development, what is sustainable development, all such type of things. National income accounting is something related to growth or development of the economy, how the economy works, what is consumption, what is investment, what is the household doing, then how we measure that, GDP, related variables of GNP, depreciation, the net domestic product, the net factor income from abroad, and then understanding the meaning of development, how growth and development are different. Once we understand the broad working of the economy, we discuss the function of money and exchange. How does the economy conduct the activities of exchange, and what is the role of banks and central bank? This is where we discuss money multiplier, money supply, money demand, and monetary policy dynamics. So if you see the broader aspect of the economy, production consumption ka understanding is here, exchange and distribution ka understanding is here. So you understand the broader economy, how it works with respect to production and with respect to how it conducts the exchange and what is the activity of money. Once this is done, important role played by the economy is the role of government, that is the domain of fiscal policy. This is where we discuss taxation, expenditure, and the debt dynamics. This broadly, the classification of taxation, expenditure, and debt we'll study from the Indian economy perspective. So iska basics we'll first cover ke why is fiscal policy for any economy important, and then we discuss the Indian economy part of fiscal policy. Another is interaction with the rest of the world, that is the external sector. In the external sector, how is first classification of the expenditures done? That is your balance of payment accounts. Maintain, or what is exchange rate? How is exchange rate decided? On what factors is exchange rate influenced? And what impact does the exchange rate have on the economy? And the third most important thing is the international institutions. In the international institutions, we'll discuss the basics of World Bank, IMF and WTO. WTO, very important topic. Number of questions come from WTO. What is WTO and also the different agreements of WTO. Now broader economy is understood कि उसकी production consumption कैसे हो रही है, exchange कैसे हो रही है, government क्या कर रही है, and what are they doing with the rest of the world. So macroeconomics, which is one half of the paper, roughly 7 to 9 questions, 6 to 8 questions, is all based on how any particular economy works, what are the different dynamics of it. In this there are smaller topics also. Those smaller topics would relate to price stability, that is inflation, measurement of and unemployment. Measurement of inflation, what is inflation, what are causes of inflation, what impact does it create on the economy, how is inflation measured. We'll discuss the variables of CPI, WPI and the GDP deflator. So these are the parts where you have to understand what the economy is doing, any particular, how the subject of economics works in any particular society. Next is the Indian economy. Now first, are these topics clear? Now what has to be done in these topics? What type of questions? What type of questions are asked from these topics? Have you seen the previous year questions? Every topic I'll complete, I'll show you the previous year questions so that you know what type of questions are asked. But do you have a broader idea what type of questions are asked? What type? What type of conceptual? Is it application? Application mostly Indian economy hai. What type of questions they ask is, first, they'll ask you the meaning of the various terms. ये पूरा ही part is understanding the concept. In fact, whole of UPSC is mostly centered around understanding concepts. It's not about learning. This is where new questions you can solve. The second type of question is how these things work in the economy, what is the cause and what is the effect. What is the cause of inflation, what is the impact of inflation, what brings in growth, what factors growth is dependent on, what is the effect of changing exchange rate, so both cause and effect, how a particular concept, so once you understand the meaning of the term, uska application kaise hota hai, wo cause and effect is something which is being understood here. So broader economy mein these two types of questions are asked from macroeconomics. Half of the paper, 6 to 8 questions would come from here. Once this is done, the macroeconomics part, the application of this macroeconomics part is something which is part of main syllabus. Main syllabus is what helps us understand what they'll ask in prelims also. Nature of question is different, but the topics are the same. What do they ask in Indian economy? Indian economy questions could be based on planning, employment, or broader growth profile of India. This is the first topic of mains, and questions are derived from this also. Another very important part which they ask in mains, also part of prelims, that is the topic of agriculture. Prelims also has significant weightage given to this topic, agriculture. In agriculture, what they can ask is the subsidies in agriculture, agriculture marketing, price policy. Questions can be on PDS, food security, question on cropping pattern, livestock animal rearing and technology in agriculture. Again, mains trying to understand what the topics are important means, questions prelims का उसी से influence है. Then apart from this planning agriculture, what we have important is related topic of, they asked questions on land reforms in 2019-20. They've also asked questions from a related topic of food processing industry, industrial policy. This year also there was a question on industrial policy talking about production linked incentives. And one of the sectors of services that is important is the financial sector. Financial sector, they're mostly asking questions from capital markets, stock market, bond markets, number of instruments, classification of the bond and the stock market, instruments, instrument ke features is something they asked in the Indian economy. These are the topics which are important for prelims in the Indian economy section. So one half is macroeconomics, the other half is Indian economy. Now what type of questions are asked from Indian economy? वहाँ पे तो terms and also cause effect. What are the type of questions asked here? That is mostly application part वहीं आएगा. That's not. See, understanding the syllabus and the type of questions is very important. Otherwise, you would not know what to read and how to read. What type of things are asked here? First, understanding the organization and structure of the Indian economy. Which crops are getting MSP, what is the cropping pattern, government budget mein what is taxation, GST and all of those concepts. Understanding the basic organization and structure. Once you've understood those, now second part that is important is analysis, but this analysis is mostly important for mains. कि किसी भी चीज़ में ऑर्गेनाइजेशन इफ़ यू अंडरस्टैंड के इंडियन एग्रीकल्चर ऐसे ऑर्गेनाइज ऐसे स्ट्रक्चर्ड है या ऐसे इंडस्ट्री ऑर्गेनाइज ऐसे स्ट्रक्चर्ड है, ये उसके बेसिक्स हैं कि WPI कौन मेजर करता है, इंडस्ट्रियल पॉलिसी में which all 8 indicators are used. These are the organization structure. Once you understand the organization structure, you know what are the issues in its implementation. Issues is something which is a domain of mains which they don't ask in prelims. But what they do ask is, once you have analyzed it, there would be certain solutions. Now what solutions come in? Solutions are in the form of schemes, policy or programs. Now this is what is the domain of prelims. Different types of schemes, intervention of the government in form of policy and programs. And what are the institutions which are implementing them? Schemes and institutions is the part which is they ask most. 2 to 3 questions on basic organization structure, but most of the questions are they asking on schemes, policy, programs and also institutions. So once you understand the basic organization structure, the second thing which you need to focus on the different policy programs which the government has in Indian economy. So these two roughly 6 to 8 questions. So half paper is concept, understanding the concept, fiscal policy, growth development, and the other half is the application of that concept in the case of India, that is Indian economy. Indian economy starting से planning से first 5-year plan till 12th 5-year plan, and then what has been happening afterwards. This is understanding the basic organization structure of India. Once you do that, you also understand there are problems. We'll not delve into the analysis part of it, but we'll definitely talk about the various solutions which have been implemented. I'll give you a brief overview on this part. This part is something which you'll have to prepare because this is mostly factual. This part is where we focus on कि planning क्या है, agriculture में subsidy क्यों start हुई, WTO का क्या role है, Amber box and different types of dynamics of the Indian economy. That you understand, this is something which you can prepare. And one more thing, schemes, policy and interventions which the Indian government does in the economy, it's not just limited to what is happening in this 1 year. So it's not that कि इसी साल की स्कीम आएगी, वो स्कीम किसी भी साल की हो सकती है because वो स्कीम टॉपिक ओरिएंटेड है, वो स्कीम डेट ओरिएंटेड नहीं है. In UPSC, the current affairs are not coming with a particular date that you will have. For example, if you're preparing for 25, it doesn't say that your newspaper reading has to start from 24 or even January 24. The schemes which we ask, the policies, they can ask as old as 1970s also because they're covering a particular topic. So when they ask what is service area approach, which is a scheme of 1980s, they're asking not because they were covering the schemes of news, they were covering the scheme related to Indian banking and financial inclusion. So they ask the scheme and policies which are specific to a topic. They do not pick the schemes which are recently in news. Somehow probability बढ़ जाती है उनकी, but ये ज़रूरी नहीं है कि वही question आए. Last year there was a question on Janani Suraksha Yojana. Janani Suraksha Yojana is nowhere related to something which happened in the news in the last 1 year. Janani Suraksha Yojana is related to food security and related to institutional deliveries, that is maternal mortality rate और the infant mortality rate. तो वो regular organization के साथ जो हमने scheme बनाई है वो है. तो ICDS mid day meal कुछ भी scheme आती है, it's not just because it is in the news, it is because it was related to a topic. This is why an important source which you can prepare for these schemes and intervention is the India Yearbook. Specific topics, 32 chapters are covered in the India Yearbook. Topics important for economics would be few. You pick those topics, you'll find mention of all the schemes which are there in that particular domain. Detailed and regular schemes are covered both in the newspaper, and second is your economic survey. Economic survey is something which you have to do complete cover to cover because organization structure एक साल में क्या हुआ था वो survey बताएगा. So economic survey and India Yearbook are very good sources to understand these schemes which are related to topic, not related to date. Newspaper is going to help you give those schemes which are regularly being covered in the last 1.5 years. Is this clear? Any doubts in this, how the syllabus has been organized? Indian economy one half and the other half is macroeconomics. Half of the paper is this, half of the paper is this. 6 to 8 questions where you have high chance of scoring because they are not something which are factual, कुछ learning चाहिए होगी, वहाँ understanding चाहिए, learning यहाँ चाहिए, क्योंकि यहाँ पे चीज़ें हुई हैं, so you'll have to remember what has happened and how it is being tackled by the government. So this is slightly difficult to score on, this is easier to score on. You score out of 8, you get 7 or 8 correct, you have a high chances of getting selected because every subject, if you get these 7 to 8 correct, the 4 subjects, that is economy, polity, modern Indian history and geography. अगर इनके ये जो basic concepts आते हैं 8 question, you get these 30-35 questions correct, no matter what the cutoff is, you'll be able to easily qualify because this is where the selection lies. Is this clear? What topics? Any doubts you have from this? So we start with the first topic. Now what exactly is national income accounting? Measuring the growth. Now when we say measuring the growth, national income accounting, what do we mean by growth? National income accounting, you have heard of GDP? What do you mean by GDP and why GDP? GDP is not something which is real. Is GDP some particular real entity? कुछ ऐसा है कि ये जैसे टेबल है, ये ग्लास है, GDP भी ऐसा कुछ है. GDP is a fictional entity. Yes, fictional entity. Why have we created and what is the purpose? And who has created the concept of GDP? Anyone has a rough idea? Economy तो सबने पढ़ी है ना? कुछ अब सीधा डेफिनेशन याद कर लोगे तो क्वेश्चन थोड़ी सॉल्व होगा. UPSC is not. What is the difference between UPSC and other exams? ये एग्जाम डिफरेंट कैसे है? या डिफरेंट है ये एग्जाम? Is this exam different? Why? See, the first important thing is, until and unless you understand the nature of the exam, you can't start preparing. Because nature of the exam, you can't expect कि यूनिवर्सिटी एग्जाम है कि 2 दिन पहले 4 चीज़ें याद कर लेंगे और उससे सॉल्व हो जाएगा. इससे नहीं होगा. So what is the nature of the exam here? Analytical base. What do you mean by analytical? Okay. Anything else? तो बाकी एग्जाम्स में नहीं चाहिए एनालिटिकल. प्रोवाइडिंग सोल्यूशन. तो यहाँ नहीं लिख सकते वो. See, I'll just give you a broad understanding of how we learn anything and how exactly this whole concept of learning or education comes in. Start होगा आपका process किसी भी चीज़ को पढ़ने से. Reading is the first step of learning where you read a particular concept. But what you do after reading is what makes the whole difference. Once you read, what we have been taught since childhood is that you just remember what you have read and try to replicate it in the exam. Once you have cleared this exam, ये क्या था सब हमें कुछ नहीं पता. This is why we are reading the NCERTs again. Because 6th class की NCERT तो पढ़ के आओगे ना class 6th में. But it doesn't make sense right now. Why? Because everybody did this and kept on doing it every year. This is why you don't remember what you read or you did not understand. What actually should have happened is once you read something, you need to develop the habit of अंडरस्टैंडिंग. अब ये नहीं किया, ये किया होता, you would have a better chance of clearing this exam, you would not require a lot of time. So someone who has developed this ability of understanding right from scratch from the primary education levels, they won't require a lot of effort to clear this exam because they always understand things, they don't rote memorize it. Now, understanding is not where the game ends. Understanding is the first part of it. Now, once you are able to understand, you should be able to apply this knowledge. This is where UPSC comes in. UPSC for prelims will check this, whether you are able to understand anything and then apply that understanding. Why application of that understanding is important? UPSC doesn't repeat questions. UPSC is giving you a new question every time. So new question every time means कि ये approach तो नहीं चल सकता. Question नहीं है तो मुझे समझ आना चाहिए और समझ को मेरे को लगाना भी आना चाहिए. It's not just that I know fiscal policy का meaning क्या है. I should be able to apply it when you give me a question. This is why UPSC, even your reading comprehension is difficult. Because it is asking you to understand and apply your knowledge. Reading comprehension in class 12th was what? 4 line similar दिखी, वो 4 यहाँ डाल दो. 10 में से 9 नहीं मिलेंगे, 7 मिल जाएंगे. This is what we want. But we could not understand and then apply it. UPSC in prelims is checking your understanding and application skill. Now the third skill, once you understand after application and understanding, these are two related, is then you try to analyze. So once you've read, your ability to analyze comes based on your understanding. So for example, you know that you've read the law of gravity, ke because of the earth's gravitational pull, something will fall towards this, you've read as the Newton's law of motion. अब वो Newton's law of motion आपसे किसी ने एक complicated statement दिया, बोला यहाँ पे क्या हो रहा है, तो आपने वो apply किया कि ये हो रहा है, इसकी वजह से हो रहा है. That means once I know what is happening, I also should know why of it. Understanding is mostly telling what and how. Why exactly understanding is what is its analysis. This is when we enter the domain of mains. This is why most of the mains questions will tell you okay, what exactly should happen, what is happening. This is the analysis part. Understanding is something, an application of understanding is checked in prelims. Analysis is one part. The second part is evaluation. Evaluation says what should happen. I've read a topic from the news where Supreme Court said this is particular topic as I've read from news that this Supreme Court has given के इस particular case में ये हुआ है और हमारा ये stand है. Now normally what would I have do is in the university or any other exam I would just memorize the Supreme Court said this in this particular judgment. But whether the Supreme Court was right or wrong, that is also something which you need to develop here. It's not just blankly copying the analysis or blankly reading the things. You also should know what should have happened. For example, there is inflation happening in the economy. If inflation happens, what does the central bank do? You have an idea of inflation? The central bank in case of inflation should increase interest rates. But if the Monetary Policy Committee said we are not increasing the interest rate, whether they took the right step or not, this is something which you should evaluate. This is what UPSC asked in mains this year. India has a consistent food inflation. Why? So this is asking you analysis of food inflation. Once you understand what is food inflation, the basic terms of it. The second part of the question is saying monetary policy is not effective in tackling this type of inflation. Why? Again, वो evaluate है कि ये कर सकते हैं कि नहीं कर सकते हैं. ये evaluation है. अब basically you read in a particular source that RBI is meant to control inflation through interest rate. But now you have to think whether they are effectively able to do it or not. What is the problem? So ये evaluation skill है. A lot of UPSC mains questions also test your evaluation. Once you know what is happening, you know why it is happening, and also you know what should happen. The last step is you need to write all of this. Whatever you've understood, whatever you've analyzed, and whatever you have evaluated. ये तीनों का culmination होगा आपकी writing में. Mains paper are subjective papers where you have to write whatever you knew, whatever you understood, whatever you could give the reasons of your understanding, and whether that understanding was right or wrong. This is what you have to create. This is how learning happens. You start from reading and then you end at create. तो इवेंचुअली आपने कोई भी सोर्स पढ़ा, आपको वो समझ आया, आपने क्या एनालाइज किया, क्या इवैल्यूएट किया, आपको लिख के दिखाना है 150 to 250 वर्ड्स में. Because the examiner doesn't know how intelligent you are, the examiner can only know what the answer you have put in front of him. So once you've developed these skills, this is where you reach the capacity to create. But this only happens when you have these 3 stages. So your whole preparation of UPSC is first stage is this. इसमें लगेंगे 4 से 5 महीने, 6 महीने भी लग सकते हैं on developing understanding of all the basic subjects, history, polity, geography and your economics. Once these 4 subjects you develop an understanding, you come to the second part of your preparation, that is analysis and evaluation, which is mains oriented. यहाँ पे आपका newspaper reading भी उतना important होगा. Newspaper here is also important, but here also because newspaper helps you understand application. This is where you develop the analysis skill, because you are preparing analysis on different topics. You don't have time to analyze in depth. So you learn from the analysis of others. So someone said something about the democratic system in India, you learn from them. This is what the opinion page of the newspaper does. You read 2-3 different opinions, आपका analysis better होता है. आप और sources पढ़ो, आपका evaluation better होता है. You stick to one newspaper, your analysis becomes limited. This is why we say Rajya Sabha debates or even All India Radio or other podcasts you read, उससे आपका analysis evaluation skills built हो रहा है. And finally the third stage of preparation is you learn to create. So when I said what is GDP, you just don't have to remember what is GDP. You have to understand कि GDP term कहाँ से आ रहा है और वो क्या measure कर रहा है. उसके बाद Indian GDP का analysis and evaluation, these are all later stages. Our focus here in these few classes is to do this. This is what is the domain of the prelims. On what topic all of this has to be done, I've already given you the topic. So it starts with understanding and application. This you have done, that means you are capable to write mains. Prelims exam is only a screening exam. So when I test your higher skills, do you have the preliminary skills or not? I don't want to evaluate the copy of 5 lakh aspirants. I only want to evaluate where someone has an understanding. तो वो हमने पहले स्क्रीनिंग टेस्ट इसलिए अंडरस्टैंडिंग का रख दिया. वो इतना ही इंपॉर्टेंट होता तो उसके मार्क्स ऐड होते. It's just a qualifying exam. That means it's not even added in your final selection. So it's not determining your final selection. What is determining your final selection is your level of analysis and how you're able to write that analysis. This is what is the important part. इसी से rank आएगी, इसी से ही सब कुछ होगा. But उसके लिए, इसके लिए capable होने के लिए, you have to first qualify this. This is how the preparation also goes. Form this, read the NCERT's basics, then you learn to analyze, evaluate the newspaper, and then finally you learn to write. Culmination of everything is when you learn to write, but it starts here. This is why this exam is completely different from all other exams. Whether it is SSC banking, what they check is the aptitude. SSC banking या even CAT का exam है वो सब aptitude test हैं. उसके भी ऐसे shortcuts we have created, whatever the whole industry is with respect to preparation of this exam, उन्होंने shortcuts बना लिए सब चीज़ के लिए, वो भी यहीं पे काम करते हैं. PCS is even more direct. PCS doesn't want to make an effort to make a question which is conceptual in nature. तो वो भी इसी concept पे बात करेंगे. इसीलिए वो पूछेंगे ये award किसको मिला. वो question बनाना आसान है. Conceptual question बनाना मुश्किल है. Since UPSC has done that year on year, this is why the exam becomes different from even PCS. Even when PCS are trying to align their subjects with UPSC, subject align हो गया, question align नहीं कर पाएंगे क्योंकि वो question बनाना खुद ही एक art है. It's not very easy because they know they'll fall in a particular controversy and then the exam would have to be cancelled. UPSC is better at it. This is why UPSC is different. And your preparation has to be different because the exam is different. All of these things have to be done on what topics? In prelims or economics, I've told you that. In mains, you already have the syllabus. So it's very much contained on what topics you have to do this. It's not that you have to do it on everything. What you have to do on the topic is different, but topics ऐसे नहीं है कुछ भी आता है. क्लियर आइडिया है क्या आता है और उससे कैसे वो क्वेश्चन आएगा. हमने याद कर लिया और हम याद करके वो सोच रहे हैं सॉल्व हो जाए, यहीं पे प्रॉब्लम है. पिकिंग फ्यू टफ क्वेश्चंस फ्रॉम द पेपर इज नॉट व्हाट डिटरमाइंस द डिफिकल्टी लेवल ऑफ द पेपर. 10 क्वेश्चन तो जरूर ऐसे आएंगे जिसका कोई आइडिया नहीं है. दोज 10 क्वेश्चंस आर नॉट गोइंग टू बी मैटरिंग इन व्हाट योर सिलेक्शन इज. तो उसके ऊपर यू कैन नॉट डिसाइड द एनालिसिस. एनालिसिस ऑफ द पेपर इज बेस्ड ऑन कि ये वाले क्वेश्चंस कितने थे. मेजॉरिटी यही है, इसी पे आपका सिलेक्शन बेस्ड है. Is it clear that this is what you have to focus on and this is how it's different? Now coming back to this topic of national income accounting, why are we talking about growth and development? Or why growth being measured in some terms? Anyone has a rough idea? I'll reach to the concept of GDP only here. But why GDP and why are we measuring growth? Developing country, developed US measure नहीं करेगा growth. What quantity? For what? Comparing. Why would you want to compare? What do you mean by growth? This is the question. Okay. नहीं we are development तो बहुत दूर चले गए. अभी just we are talking about growth. Increasing income. Income is one component of growth. So you're saying increasing growth, you say how do you know increasing growth? Because income increase हो रही है. तो वो एक factor हो गया जो growth को represent कर रहा है. What do you mean by performance? यही तो question है. Yes, तो why? Why changes in production or consumption? See, the whole question of economics, or what is the subject economics about? From there you will get a better idea. Economics क्या subject matter है, क्या पढ़ने की कोशिश कर रहे हो? Optimum utilization of resources. Why? Yes. Economics is trying to understand a problem that how exactly is the society able to ensure its well-being, and mostly well-being in material terms. The whole subject of economics is trying to understand or make sense of how is any particular society able to maximize its well-being, how it is able to ensure well-being, and not in psychological terms the health, but mostly in the material well-being. How does it manage to get whatever it needs or whatever it wants? Now why the question is important here? This material well-being can be ensured by utilizing resources. For example, if you have to ensure the well-being is based on the most basic source, whether it is need or want, what resource is required to ensure well-being, or what is required to ensure it, not resource or any other thing. Well-being start का concept होगा from survival. This is the first well-being which you have to ensure. Survival will happen based on food. Now from where will you get this food? Starting point ही food होगा कि material clothing और बाकी सब तो बाद में आएगा. Material well-being means everything, housing and वो तो फिर it's endless. But from where is it starting? It's starting with the most basic well-being which you have to ensure, that is food. From where does the food come in? Food comes in from the resources provided in the environment. Now are these resources being used directly, or are these resourcing being converted? Well-being is being ensured when the resources are being converted into certain. This process of conversion is what is the subject matter of economics, because goods and services are meant to satisfy the wants. Want is what is my this material well-being or survival is a want. In order to fulfill this want, which fulfills the want better, resource or goods or service? That means I have to convert the resource into goods and services. This process of conversion is nothing but production. When this will be utilized, these goods and services to satisfy the wants, this is the process of consumption. तो ये production क्यों हो रही है? Because the society wants to fulfill its wants. Fulfill of wants means the society has a particular utility. What do you understand by utility? What is utility? Use of any particular product. What do you mean by that? That this table is useful, or used for what? And this chair is useful, or this glass is useful. That is utility of that product. What do you mean by utility? Utility is the want satisfying power of a commodity. This is what is utility. Now what satisfy the utility more? Resource or goods or service? Goods and services. That means this process of production is nothing but creation of utility. I am creating utility. And what is consumption? The usage of that utility. ग्लास बनने से कुछ नहीं होगा, आप जब ग्लास को यूज करोगे तब आपका fulfillment of want होगा. That is particular usage of utility, that is nothing but consumption. जो फाइनली सेटिस्फैक्शन मिलेगा वो ग्लास के बनने से नहीं मिलेगा, ग्लास के यूज करने से मिलेगा. ग्लास का बनना इज प्रोडक्शन एंड यूज इज कंजम्पशन. एंड whenever the good is produced, that particular good also has to be distributed. Distribution mein one of the most basic thing is that the good has to be exchanged. Someone produces good A, someone produces good B. They're going to exchange. Why? Because there is a want of that good. Now, what the subject is trying to do is, subject is trying to understand this production, consumption and distribution. The whole subject is centered around production, consumption and distribution. Now, why are we talking about these things? Because we want to study how people are satisfying their wants. Now, how people are satisfying their wants, why? Because they have certain needs and resources can't fulfill them, goods and services are. Now, what is the question which they have to study? तो process जो वो study कर रहे हैं, activities are activities of production, distribution and consumption. These are referred to as economic activities. Activities dealing with production, consumption and distribution. These are economic activities. But why are they reading this question? They're reading this question because the resources that are present in the environment are scarce and the wants which people are unlimited. So वो question read इसलिए करना पड़ रहा है because we have a problem of scarcity. How it can be made better? Whenever first I have to study this process, I have to start with understanding what is happening. Once I understand something which is happening, then only I can prescribe what should happen. This is what is the concept of economic theories and models, that first I will make sense of what is happening. Making sense of what is happening also I'll have to develop a theory. Consumer theory, cardinal, so many different things, micro and macro. Once I do this, I can also prescribe कि improve कैसे हो सकता है. This is why any particular social science subject has a behavioral component which is descriptive component के हो क्या रहा है. And then has a prescriptive component which is called as the normative component, what should happen. So social sciences, all the social sciences will always first understand, then also prescribe. Description of these activities is helping us understand the problem of scarcity. So economics as a subject is studying human behavior by understanding the relationship between resource and wants. The activities which are involved in this is production, distribution and consumption. Is it making sense? Now what is the question of growth here? Now whenever we have limited resource and we have unlimited wants. The limited resource and unlimited wants we have to satisfy. That means we have to first convert them into goods and services because utility इनका ज़्यादा है, इनका कम है. This only wants will be satisfied better. Satisfying power of goods and services is more than of resource. Now in this context, what would be growth? If I produce more goods and services, is the potential for satisfying human wants increasing? A particular economy is producing 10 goods, the other economy is producing 15 goods. इन दोनों में से किसका potential for satisfaction is increasing? More goods. More goods means that if I produce more, production of goods and services is more, that means the economy has more output. More output means that the more satisfaction of wants. This more satisfaction of wants by creating more output is nothing but growth of a particular nation or a particular territory is when they have more want satisfying power. Want satisfying power will be more when they have more production. Because how do you differentiate between a rural and an urban area? What is the difference between village and city? Village is dependent on more agriculture. So mode of production is only basic primary, converting the raw material into agriculture goods, whether it is cash crop or it is food crop, right? Now what are the production modes in city? Can have industries, can have services. That means वहाँ पे production कहाँ पे ज़्यादा होगा? Rural areas or urban areas? Urban areas has more potential for satisfying wants. Similarly, if you compare India with US, what differences you can find? If you visit particular territory, you say कि यहाँ पे better है चीज़ें. What do you mean by better? Or what term we use is standard of living. What do we mean by standard of living? Standard of living is based on what access of goods and services you have. This household has better standard of living. कैसे पता चल रहा है? उनके पास गाड़ी ये है, उनके पास घर ऐसा है, उनके घर में washing machine ये है, phone ये है. This has less standard of living as compared to them because they have a two-wheeler, not a four-wheeler. So what exactly is defining standard of living? Definition of standard of living is coming on what exactly is जिसके पास गुड्स एंड सर्विसेज ज़्यादा हैं उनका पोटेंशियल फॉर सेटिस्फाइंग वांट्स इज मोर. वी आर नॉट सेइंग सेटिस्फैक्शन होगा ही, बट पोटेंशियल ज़रूर ज़्यादा है कि उसके पास 10 हैं, इसके पास 5 हैं, तो उनका पोटेंशियल ज़्यादा है. दिस इंक्रीजिंग द पोटेंशियल ऑफ सेटिस्फाइंग वांट्स इज समथिंग विच इज कॉल्ड एज इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ. So the whole subject started from understanding the question of scarcity. The more you are able to create goods and satisfy the wants is what is the meaning of growth. Is it making sense? You can write these few things. Now, once you have understood what is growth, अब next question ये होगा कि growth measure कैसे होती है. वहाँ पे फिर हम एक concept introduce करेंगे GDP. कि output ये थी, अब output X है, अब output Y है. Change, positive change in output is what we are calling as growth. What is the English meaning of the word growth? Not talking about economic terms. ये तो मैंने economic growth का आपको मतलब बताया. What is the English meaning of the term? Increase. Growth is measuring the rate of increase. So rate of increase of what when we say economic growth? Rate of increase of output. Rate of increase of production. Because the more you produce, the more satisfaction you will have for that particular wants. So you can write down economics as a subject studies human behavior as a relationship between limited means in bracket resources and unlimited ends in bracket wants. In the next line, production is the process of transforming inputs into output, that increase the utility or want satisfying capacity of the inputs. That increase the utility or want satisfying capacity of the inputs. That means production is creation of utility. Is this clear? Next, in the next line, consumption is the process of usage of good or service to achieve final satisfaction of wants. That means it is usage of utility. Is it clear? Production, consumption. Next slide, economic growth. How? बिल्कुल, कंजम्पशन इसलिए है क्योंकि डिमांड होगी, प्रोडक्शन इसलिए सप्लाई होगी. इसी प्रोसेस को ही तो हम अब प्रोडक्शन को आपको समझना है कि कोई भी गुड क्यों प्रोड्यूस हो रहा है और कौन सा गुड प्रोड्यूस होना चाहिए. तो दैट इज योर अंडरस्टैंडिंग द सप्लाई. एंड व्हेन यू अंडरस्टैंड द सप्लाई फ्रॉम perspective of one individual, one firm, that is the domain of microeconomics. Once you understand it from all firms perspective, that becomes macroeconomics. UPSC ka syllabus is macroeconomics. So all of these terms of demand and supply have come in because we have to understand production and consumption. क्योंकि कोई भी प्रोडक्ट कब प्रोड्यूस होगा उसका कुछ डिमांड होगा, प्रोड्यूस होगा, क्या फैक्टर्स इन्फ्लुएंस कर रहे हैं, दैट इज व्हाट इट सप्लाई इज. सो दीज थिंग्स हैव बीन इंट्रोड्यूस्ड. दिस इज व्हाई आई सेड थियरीज एंड मॉडल्स हैव बीन बिल्ट टू मेक सेंस ऑफ दिस. उसमें फिर वो डिमांड का रिलेशन क्या है, सप्लाई का क्या रिलेशन है, डिफरेंट थ्योरीज हैव गिवन डिफरेंट एक्सप्लेनेशन. One theory is talking about individual units, that is your microeconomics. But when we talk about the entire economy as a whole, that becomes macroeconomics. UPSC is asking us the broader level, that is macroeconomics. They don't cover micro. In the last 15 years, there have been only 2 questions on microeconomics, and that too very basic on law of demand and also related terms, opportunity cost and that. That also I'll explain. Economic growth is the increase in level of output which means expanding the potential, expansion of potential for fulfilling wide range of human wants. Is it clear? We started with understanding the question of scarcity. Okay, how does the society maintain its material well-being? How do they achieve it? For material well-being, they need production because goods and services are providing more utility. When they consume it, we come to know what the total final satisfying power was. And if you have more production means more potential for satisfying what? That is called as the concept of economic growth. It's completely different from what is development. It's this expansion of the goods and services is not what is development. How you bring that particular growth could be one factor on deciding what development is. And it's not just about access to goods and services, it could be access to different number of things also. So we'll discuss how development is different from the concept of growth. But is it clear what is growth? Yes. No, one factor of development. Growth could be one factor of development, not the entire one. This is why the difference between the two. Is this clear? Now if the production process has to happen, how does this production happen? So starting point of any economy is to understand the problem of production. Now what are the factors through which production will happen? Yes, there are few factors which would be required to start the production. So if we talk about production of food, for food what do you need? First, the production factor would be land. And land means what? Is it just the physical area or it includes anything else also? नहीं, agriculture तो activity है ना. What is meaning of agriculture? Agriculture का मतलब क्या है? When you say agriculture, food is coming because of agriculture. What do you mean by agriculture? It's an activity. What type of activity? Is it a scientific activity or is it a skill, a art? Is science? It's not art. मतलब अगर हम आप सबको बता दें कि क्या science है तो सब art कर लेंगे agriculture. Is cooking an art or a science? It's both. It's not just art, it's also science. You need to know कि वो आग कैसे जलती है. A plus B is equal to C is what is science. But not everybody knows A plus B is equal to C. वो सब सेम नहीं कर पाएंगे. मैगी भी 2 लोग सेम नहीं बना सकते, जबकि वो सबसे सिंपल उसका रेसिपी है. Recipe is the science, but not everybody has it because it's an art also involved. So agriculture is also an art. Art and science of what? Plowing the soil. Plowing the soil, cultivating the crops, and also rearing of livestock. This is what is the meaning of agriculture. Okay? Art and science of working, tilling the soil and producing crops there. For that you need land. Land is not just the physical area. Does it include anything else? कैसे बनेगा फूड? सिर्फ लैंड से फूड बन जाता है? क्या चाहिए और? लेबर. लेबर इज समथिंग यू विल हैव टू कंबाइन. अपने आप तो नहीं बनेगा. मशीन also. Why do you want that fertilizer? Or if you don't have the fertilizer, what would you need? Fertility. That means you also need the नेचुरल रिसोर्स विद इन इट. फर्टिलिटी क्या है कि उसके अंदर क्या न्यूट्रिएंट है. So land doesn't mean the physical area. Land also means the resource which is available within and on the land. Water, forest, all of these are resources which are part of land. तो production के लिए आपको area चाहिए plus resource चाहिए. Resource को तो convert करोगे. And what is the first resource apart from the resource available from the environment you will need? Soil is available from the environment. वो natural resource है. That is labor. Labor is what combines its manual labor with respect to this, the work which is added. Work is added to what? A land plus resource. Labor means what? Is it skilled work? Labor means both the manual work and the intellectual work. दोनों चीजें होंगी. Manual work, also intellectual, how exactly to use it. This is skilled and unskilled, both. Then apart from this, what is capital? अब हमें पता है कि मैनुअल लेबर लगेगा, टिल करना है सॉइल को, और नेचुरल रिसोर्स उसके अंदर है. इन दोनों से हो जाएगा. What is capital? Is it money? Then land is not money. What is secondary and primary money? And how will you create a difference between secondary and primary money? Is land not essential? Is labor not? Then how is your definition differentiating between the two? आपने बोला कैपिटल एसेंशियल है, तो लैंड एसेंशियल नहीं है. वो भी एसेंशियल है. फिर दोनों का कैपिटल कैन इंक्लूड लैंड. दैट्स ऑल्सो ट्रू. What is investment? Well, तो investment का meaning बताओ. Land and labor alone cannot give you too much production. आपको अपना production improve करना है तो क्या करोगे? One process is production, that is converting the input into how well you are doing it. That is the process of productivity, which is how much output is produced from what input. यही productivity होती है. कि आप दो newspapers you have read, how much time you have taken, that is your input. How much effort you have put. किसी ने 2 घंटे में पढ़ा, किसी ने 1 घंटे में पढ़ा. अगर दोनों का लर्निंग सेम है तो प्रोडक्टिव ज़्यादा कौन हुआ? जिसने इनपुट कम लगाया. How do you increase the productivity of any process? This increase in productivity happens because of use of what is this capital good? Capital goods are those goods which are used in production but not consumed. लैंड और लेबर लगे हुए हैं काम करने में. दे डोंट नो हाउ टू इम्प्रूव द प्रोसेस. किसी ने अपना दिमाग लगाया कि हम अगर कुछ एनिमल को यूज करें इसमें, और इफ आई टिल द सॉइल यूजिंग अ स्टील इक्विपमेंट, आई विल हैव लेस इनपुट बट मोर आउटपुट. हैव यू सीन हाउ एनी हाउस इज कंस्ट्रक्टेड? हैव यू सीन द हाउस कंस्ट्रक्शन जिसमें छत कैसे डलती है? लेंटर जब डलता है, हाउ डू यू प्रोवाइड ऑल ऑफ द इनपुट्स टू दैट फर्स्ट लेवल? Has anyone seen construction? So how do they put on the roof? रूफ तक सामान कैसे पहुंचता है जो सीमेंट है? वो तो बीम आपको नीचे से खड़ी करनी पड़ती है. उसके ऊपर छत कैसे डालोगे? कितने टाइप के प्रोसेस हैं? इफ यू सी इट इन द रूरल एरियाज, लेबर एक मिक्स करेगा सीमेंट को नीचे, और उसको हाथ से लेबर एक पूरी लाइन बनाएंगे जो एक से एक पास करेगा. बेटर क्या है कि आपकी मशीन ही आपको सीधा ऊपर ट्रांसफर कर दे. So what is the difference between the two process? Difference between the two processes, one has capital good, the other has no capital good. इससे और efficient process क्या है in urban areas? कि पहले ही premix आता है मशीन में, और premix लेबर की जरूरत ही नहीं है, आपको एक ही बंदे से वो पूरा डलवा दो. So what is the difference in all the three process? It is the use of capital goods. Capital goods are certain goods which are used in production but are not consumed. Capital goods are representative of nothing but. और टेक्नोलॉजी बनती कैसे है? Technology is something which improves the productivity of any process. Technology is something which increases the efficiency. Efficiency is productivity. How do you build that technology? इट कम्स फ्रॉम दिस, आपका इंटेलेक्चुअल स्किल है, स्किल में आपने उस प्रोडक्ट की इंजीनियरिंग समझी, इंजीनियरिंग को आपने कन्वर्ट किया उसको टेक्नोलॉजी। तो ये जो रिफ्लेक्शन ऑफ इंजीनियरिंग इनटू टेक्नोलॉजी है, दिस रिफ्लेक्शन इज कमिंग इन। So capital goods are those goods which are used in production but not consumed. So any type of machinery, any type of tool, any type of equipment, any type of infrastructure, all is capital. Capital represents goods which are used in production but not consumed. So any machinery, any tools, any equipment, or even any, this is called as social overhead capital. ये भी एक capital ही है. Road, railways, all of these are used in production but not consumed. Something which is representing productivity और technology. इसीलिए तो डेवलप बेटर होगा, ये दोनों तो फैक्टर अवेलेबल हैं, ह्यूमन रिसोर्स एंड नेचुरल रिसोर्स, बट ये काम करके आपको इतनी एफिशिएंसी नहीं दे सकते। एफिशिएंसी कब बढ़ेगी? जब वो कैपिटल लगाएगा। इज इट क्लियर? द मोर समवन डेवलप्स कैपिटल, दिस इज वेयर वी से द मोर दे आर इन्वेस्टिंग। इन्वेस्टमेंट इज दिस। व्हाट एल्स इज रिक्वायर्ड? फर्टिलाइजर क्या है? इज फर्टिलाइजर कैपिटल? हाउ कंज्यूम होता है वो? फर्टिलाइजर इज जस्ट यू आर एक्सपैंडिंग द रिसोर्स डेफिनेशन। आपने रिसोर्स नेचुरल की जगह एक आर्टिफिशियल भी बना दिया है। दैट इज पार्ट ऑफ दिस दैट यू क्रिएटेड, यू हैव एक्सपैंडेड। सो व्हाट डिड मैल्थस से? हैव यू हर्ड अबाउट मैल्थस? क्या बोला था उन्होंने? उन्होंने बोला था कि आपके ह्यूमन इतने ज़्यादा बढ़ जाएंगे कि फूड उसको इतना नहीं मिल पाएगा, प्रोडक्शन नहीं इंक्रीज होगी। हाउ वाज ही प्रूवन रॉन्ग? ये व्हाट हेबर बॉश प्रोसेस, जब जर्मनी ब्रिटेन ने सिंथेसाइज कर लिया यूरिया फैक्ट्री में, जब उन्होंने लैब में यूरिया बना लिया तो अब यूरिया ने प्रोडक्शन बढ़ा दी कि नाइट्रोजन फिक्सेशन हो जाएगी तो प्रोडक्शन बढ़ जाएगा तो ह्यूमन रिसोर्स बच जाएंगे। दैट मीन्स नेचुरल रिसोर्स की लिमिटेशन थी, बट नेचुरल रिसोर्स में हमने अपना दिमाग लगाया और नेचुरल रिसोर्स को वी हैव क्रिएटेड ऑल्टरनेटिव्स ऑफ नेचुरल रिसोर्स, दैट इज क्रिएशन ऑफ, you are expanding the boundary of resource either by creating machines or creating alternatives to that. ये artificial resource भी capital से ही बनेगा, क्योंकि fertilizer produce कहाँ होगा? That is being produced through machines. See how exactly resource की boundary आपने expand करी है, कैसे की? capital goods and skills से। तभी आपका रिसोर्स की बाउंड्री एक्सपैंड होगी कि सिर्फ नेचुरल रिसोर्स नहीं, हम आर्टिफिशियल रिसोर्स भी बना सकते हैं। इलेक्ट्रिसिटी इज नॉट जस्ट बेस्ड ऑन कोल और मेड फ्रॉम ऑयल, दैट इज हाइड्रोकार्बन्स। कोल और आपका फॉसिल सारे अवेलेबल हैं अर्थ में। व्हाट इज द आर्टिफिशियल एक्सपेंशन ऑफ बाउंड्री? सोलर सेल्स। सोलर सेल से भी हम कैप्चर कर सकते हैं। सोलर सेल कहाँ से बनेगा? वो बनेगा से। इज इट क्लियर? इट्स जस्ट अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ दिस ओनली। व्हाट एल्स इज रिक्वायर्ड? लैंड, लेबर, कैपिटल गुड। व्हाट एल्स इज रिक्वायर्ड फॉर प्रोडक्शन? रॉ मटेरियल तो आपका रिसोर्स है, या ये है? हाँ, वो क्या है रॉ मटेरियल? एग्जाम्पल दो। हाँ, एग्जाम्पल दो। तो वीट क्या आएगी? यहाँ से ही आएगी। वीट के लिए सीड्स हैं, सीड्स कहाँ से आती हैं? या तो ये हो गया, ये आर्टिफिशियली बना हो गया, नेचुरल बना हो गया, और तो कहीं नहीं आ सकता। वैल्यू एडिशन कैसे? वैल्यू एडिशन तो लेबर ने अपना वैल्यू ऐड किया लैंड में, अपने आप तो नहीं बना। मार्केट इज अ प्लेस वेयर यू कैन सेल, बट मार्केट इज नॉट इन्वॉल्व इन प्रोडक्शन। प्रोडक्शन सेल कहाँ होगी, डिस्ट्रीब्यूट कहाँ होगी, वो मार्केट है। पर प्रोडक्शन में मार्केट की जरूरत थोड़ी है। व्हाट एल्स? यस, ये तीनों मिक्स कौन करेगा साथ में? कितना लैंड लगेगा, कितना लेबर लगेगा, कितना कैपिटल लगेगा, और इन तीनों से काम कौन करवाएगा? एक है प्रोडक्शन एक्टिविटी, एक इज मैनेजमेंट एंड ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऑफ दैट एक्टिविटी। दैट इज द फोर्थ फैक्टर ऑफ प्रोडक्शन, दैट इज entrepreneurship. This is organization and management. Is it clear? Any production process will start from these four, and pura discussion on growth and development you can do on these four factors itself. These four factors if you know, you can analyze any economy के factors का क्या utilization और कैसे better हो सकता है। Very simple. If a particular economy has less capital goods as compared to other, how will their production and productivity be impacted? Capital good availability is different in Pakistan, is different in India, is different in Africa, and different in US. How different it is? सबसे ज़्यादा productivity और capital goods किसके पास है? US has better. Then you have India. Then you have Pakistan. Land labor तो सबके पास है, प्लस माइनस लैंड लेबर का थोड़ा बहुत ही होगा नेचुरल रिसोर्स का. फॉर एग्जाम्पल जापान डज नॉट हैव अ लॉट ऑफ नेचुरल रिसोर्स, सो दे वर्कड ऑन देयर स्किल एंड ट्राई टू क्रिएट. ऑयल नहीं है उनके पास, they still produce the most efficient cars which uses less oil. This is nothing but capital good coming from their intellect. किसी भी इकोनॉमी का any performance is going to be based on these four factors only. India also. India has a lot of manual and intellectual labor. But ज़्यादातर कहाँ काम कर रहा है? बाहर जाके उनके लिए बना रहे हैं. मिडिल ईस्ट लेबर जा रहा है, इंटेलेक्चुअल लेबर हमारा यूएस जा रहा है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया जा रहा है, कनाडा जा रहा है. वो इंडिया में होता है तो हमारा कैपिटल गुड्स और होता. हाउ डू वी नो दैट? एनी पर्टिकुलर न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी, वेदर इट इज कमिंग इन द फॉर्म ऑफ कैपिटल गुड्स और इवन सर्विसेज ऑल्सो, से क्रिएशन ऑफ अ सॉफ्टवेयर, आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस, एनीथिंग इज ऑल्सो अ कैपिटल गुड, extension of capital good, that is software. Who's making those? Only few companies. It's coming from, you understand the whole. So production process would require 4 factors. Now whenever these 4 factors, do you understand this? These are the primary factors. Some sources also mention secondary factors of production. Secondary factors इनका mixture ही होगा. For example, energy or power. Power is a mixture of capital goods, land and labor. But it's a combination of only these 4. So any particular factor of production that gets created is only an expansion of this. Contribution of mixing different variables of this. Is this clear? Now once these factors are engaged, the use of these factors of production generates a return. जब भी आप land use करोगे आपको return मिलेगा. When you use labor, you have to pay them a return for using that particular labor. Similarly, when you use capital good, you have to pay a return on the use of it. So whenever a factor gets utilized, you have to pay them a return. This return could be in form of money, it could be form of goods or service. But a return has to be paid whenever a factor. This particular variable, which is the return on use of factors of production, this return is referred to as income. Whenever a factor gets utilized, an income is generated. Income is a very broad term which is covering use of all factors of production, not just one. So when we say how much did the labor earn, it is just one part of his income. That particular part of the income is called as wage. So what are the income? Income is on use of factors of production. What is the income on land? Income on land is called as rent. And if you use the resource, for example, if a particular company mines coal in India, do you think it has to pay any particular return on the mining which they have done? अगर आप फॉरेस्ट काटते हो या कोई भी माइन करते हो नेचुरल रिसोर्स, डू दे हैव टू पे एनी इनकम और एनी रिटर्न टू द ओनर ऑफ दैट पर्टिकुलर मटेरियल? यस, व्हाट इज इट कॉल्ड? टैक्स नहीं. टैक्स इज वन साइडेड. यहाँ पे आपने उसकी रिसोर्स यूज की है तो आप यूज के रिटर्न में कुछ दे रहे हो. टैक्स है कि आपने कुछ नहीं किया तब भी देना है. I'll explain the meaning of tax also. It's completely different. Seigniorage is printing of money. That is not this. Mining company pay what? It is called as royalty. And also, say if it is an artificial resource. How is an artificial resource created? या अगर कोई artificial resource बनाता है, for example, Haber-Bosch process है. Now that process, whatever product I've created, I'll get a patent on the product. Now if I allow someone else to use the patent, what do I get? Resource की use पे हमेशा मिलेगा royalty. Land के use पे मिलेगा rent. What do you get on labor? Labor is paid a wage. What is the difference between wage and salary? Salary per month. तो दोनों का time का component है. Wage is fixed and salary. Yes. Wage is varying, it's not fixed, whereas whenever wage becomes fixed it becomes salary. So wage is the broader component. wage जब fix हो जाती है उसको हम salary बोल रहे हैं. What is the capital good getting? The return on capital good is interest and return on entrepreneurship is profit. So income is received on the use of factors of production, which is this. Is this clear? You want to have a dictation or you have noted this down? Everyone has noted? You can just write 2 lines on this. For initiating the production process, there are 4 factors required. That is land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. When these factors are used, there is a return generated that is referred to as income. Return generated that is referred to as income, where income to land is rent and royalty. Income to land is rent and royalty. Wages for labor. Interest for capital. Interest for capital and profit for entrepreneurship. Are these clear? Factors of production in this. That means whenever production will happen, there will be 2 activities that will happen along with production. Whenever production will happen, income will be generated. Why? Because use will happen, income will be generated. What more will happen? Production hote income generate ho rahi hai. So either I measure production or income, it's the same thing. This is why GDP has 2 methods. One is measure the production or measure the income. This is why national income accounting also means output measurement. या तो production measure करो, income measure करो, बात एक है, because both happening in the same process. The moment production will happen, इसका reverse है कि उसका factor income आएगा. Expenditure is also there, वो उसका different meaning different है. उसका meaning ये है अगर किसी ने produce किया तो किसी ने पैसे खर्च किए. But हमारा production process में तो income generate हुई है ना, so production and income. Another thing that will always happen is creation of jobs, because labor will be employed. That means employment and income generation are always a factor of production. So you can write this line. Employment generation and income generation are a result of production. Is this clear? From this you will also understand inequality. How can inequality be understood? कि जब production हुआ, इन चारों factors में return आ जाएगा. Which factor got how much return will determine what inequality is there. The major inequality happens, what is the profit and what is the wage. This is what determines what inequality is. Capitalism will say, let the capitalist decide what profit is. He will decide profit based on market. Socialist will say, let the government decide what is wage and what is profit. तो जब government decide करेगी, inequality कम होगी. Market decide करेगी, तो जिसका ownership है वो decide करेगा, inequality ज़्यादा होगी. These 4 factors, if you understand, you will be able to make sense of all the problems of growth and development. It's only on these 4 factors. Production नहीं है तो job नहीं है, production नहीं है तो income नहीं है, because production से ही income generate होगी. Is this clear? Now how this process happens? Anyone who's involved in any of these processes, these are called as economic actors. The actors that are involved in activities of production, distribution, and consumption. Anyone involved in these 3. These 3 are called as economic activities. Economic activities is production, consumption, and distribution. Anyone involved in these activities is called as economic actors. Now, who all are involved in these activities? All meaning the population of any particular territory is referred to as, in broader term, is referred to as the households of that economy. This is largely the population. Who does the production? The production is done by firms. Another actor which takes part in all of this is your government. Intermediary या तो firm होगा, household होगा. And whenever this economic actors, these three interact with the households, firms and government of any other economy, that is their interaction with. किसी भी territory में ये तीन चीज है, ये जब तीन किसी और के बाहर से interact करेंगे, that will become interaction with the rest of the world. In this you will understand how production, distribution or consumption happens. Now how does this production happen? Any economy, to make sense of this, we will use a very simplistic model, that is the circular flow of production or circular flow of, both mean the same thing. Production होगा तो income आएगा. So how does this happen? Who does what? We understand from the circular flow. Understand from how the circular flow, we make sense of this. Any particular economy has its population as household. Households are the ones which are responsible for consumption, because consumption is satisfaction of wants. हमारा question ही यहीं से start हुआ था, that we want to satisfy wants. Want satisfaction will happen through consumption. But who will do the production? Firms. That means the natural entity of that particular territory was household. But उन्होंने जब production करना था तो उन्हें एक firm register करनी पड़ेगी. This is what is the difference. For example, Ambani family is part of household, but they wanted to produce certain things. They registered a firm called Reliance Industries. They registered a firm called Jio Industries. तो ये एक fictional entity बनाई. Real entity क्या थी? Household. This fictional entity was created for what purpose? This was created for the process of production. Now how will this production commence? The production would commence when they require factors. Factors कहाँ से मिलेंगे? Household. Some households will provide land, some households will provide labor, some households can provide capital, other households can provide entrepreneur. Ambani is coming from an household, he is the entrepreneur. He hires the labor of other people, he buys the land of other people. Everybody land in particular territory belongs to the household. That means the household will provide factors of production. Once this factors of production is provided, utilized production will happen. In return for use of factors of production, what do they have to pay? The firm will have to pay them income. Income where they will have to pay a rent, they will have to pay royalty, they will have to pay interest, and also they will take some profit for themselves for organizing all of this. तो उन्होंने ये तीन तो उनकी कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन है. कॉस्ट ऑफ प्रोडक्शन पे व्हाट एल्स दे कैन चार्ज. तो ये इनकम ऑफ फैक्टर्स ऑफ प्रोडक्शन चारों फैक्टर आ गए, राइट. वट एवर दे डिसाइड, दिस विल गिव मी द फाइनल प्रोडक्ट प्राइस. I had certain expenses, I will add my profit. This is also an income to factor of production because I have organized and managed. I get certain income. This income is what I have to distribute. How will I get this income? How will I get this income? अगर मुझे return करना है तो कमाना भी तो पड़ेगा. कैसे मिलेगा? Yes, the final product will have to be sold. The final product has to be sold. That means the production will give me. Sales is nothing but revenue of the firm. Whatever sales they are making is equal to whatever the expenditure they are doing. For example, मैंने product का price रखा X, तो मेरा revenue क्या आएगा? X plus तो नहीं आ सकता. जितने का बनाया उतने का ही बेचना है. Profit add हो चुका है. How much will the household spend? The household will spend X. Is this making sense? I'll give you another example. If the income to the Household, for rent I have to pay 500. For wage I am paying 1000 rupees. Interest I have paid 300. This is my cost of production. The total cost of production becomes how much? 1800. 1800 pay, I am charging 200 as profit. So what is the final price of the product? 2000. So at what price will I sell it in the market? So 2000 would be equal to my, जितनी टोटल इनकम थी उतना ही सेल हुआ. और अगर 2000 का प्रोडक्ट कोई सेल हो रहा है मार्केट में, हाउ मच विल द हाउसहोल्ड स्पेंड? 2000 ओनली. So that means the household is responsible for providing factors in which return they get income. The firm is responsible for production. Now if I want to measure how much is being produced, is this relation clear? This side, this is side A is equal to side C. किसी भी economy में हमेशा true होगा ये. I have number of assumptions. What assumptions? I'll just bring in all assumptions. If there is no savings, no government, nothing, all of the three sides are equal. Savings भी आए, government भी है, तब भी ये side equal रहेगी. I'll explain how these will be equal. That means whatever output happens is created in the economy. How can I measure this output? Output is total goods and services produced. How can I measure total goods and services produced? Either I measure what is the total production that happened, or I measure the total income, or I measure the total expenditure. All three would come out to be equal. The output is equal to production is equal to income is equal to expenditure. Is this clear? This is why GDP measurement has three methods. Expenditure is equal to income is equal to production. So you can give the heading circular flow. In the circular flow you can make this diagram, and below this you can write this equation. Is it making sense what is happening? If you find the pace of the class more, you just let me know. Because until and unless you tell me कि ज़्यादा है कम है, तो मैं तो फिर. So the moment you think you can't understand anything, you just let me know. We'll move on a slower pace. Also today we'll just have a class of 2 hours. Tomorrow we'll have a complete class. And we'll try to wrap up by 2:45, 2:50. For measuring the output, production is equal to income is equal to expenditure. That is, side A is equal to side B is equal to side C. Is it clear? Now how will we create growth in this economy? Increase. Why will नहीं production increase होगा तो income अपने आप increase हो जाएगी. Production increase होगा तो अपने आप jobs बन जाएंगी. But why will any economy increase its production? Yes. So one way of the growth of output is that I should increase my consumption. If I increase the consumption, what will happen to production? Production will increase. I will have more engagement of factors of production means more jobs means more income. More income means more. This is what is called as consumption-led model of growth. Why do you think US is bringing its factories in India or China? Because they have a large consumption. South Korea is one of the largest sellers of car in the world, but it is selling most of the cars to whom? India, Hyundai. तो वो प्रोडक्शन अपनी कहाँ बेच पा रहे हैं? उन्हें पता है उनकी कंट्री में लोग कम हैं, तो हर किसी को भी अगर एक कार बेच दी तो नेक्स्ट ग्रोथ कहाँ से आएगी? That means they will have to sell cars outside. That means they will have to capture the consumption of other countries. Which two countries are the most populous nations? China and India. So jitni zyada consumption, utni zyada production. So you can write this. In order to create growth, the economies focus on their consumption. Focus on their consumption. Which leads to more production. That generates income and more jobs. Is this clear? Now, when can the growth slow down in this economy? अगर consumption decrease होगा, consumption decrease कैसे होता है? This relation clear? How will consumption decrease? Right now, whatever slowdown is happening in Indian economy, it's a consumption slowdown. Bajaj is not able to sell the two-wheelers. Today's news was that four-wheelers are also very difficult. Maruti गाड़ी नहीं बेच पा रही है. FMCG goods are not being sold. That means we are facing a consumption. If you read any analysis right now of Indian economy, it's a combination of both consumption slowdown and an investment slowdown. Investment meaning, this is what we'll come to. Is consumption-led growth story clear? China is also facing this problem. Now, in this growth, how can I slow down? Or what could be the reason for slowdown? I have created a firm and you have a household. Household has given factors and firm is giving income. This income is what is used for consumption expenditure. सिंपल सा एक प्रोसेस है कि इनकम रिसीव हुई फैक्टर्स पे इनकम से ही कंज्यूम किया, राइट? कंज्यूम किया तो इनका सेल ऑफ द प्रोडक्ट. नाउ व्हाट इफ दिस इनकम विच इज टू बी यूज्ड फॉर कंजम्पशन इज saved. I received 2000 rupees, but I did not spend 2000, I spent 1500. Sale would be 1500. That means some part is going in savings. If it is going in savings, this is reducing my flow of production. What is the meaning of then saving? What would you mean by saving? For what future use? From this itself, इनकम का वो पार्ट जो कंज्यूम नहीं हो रहा है. सेविंग इज व्हाट? अ पार्ट ऑफ इनकम दैट इज नॉट बीइंग कंज्यूम्ड. और व्हाट यू आर सेइंग इज सैक्रिफाइसिंग टुडेज कंजम्पशन फॉर फ्यूचर. दिस इज नथिंग बट saving. So if there is saving in the economy, that means the flow of production is reducing. Flow of production is reducing. Therefore, the economy might witness a slowdown. But how will this saving also benefit? Saving is meaning just one. Saving is sacrificing consumption for future use. But if I think that my saving can provide me more benefit, if I want to earn something, I can put that saving into a bank. What will the bank do with this saving? Bank can provide this loan to firm. This is what is called as an. Now, what is the meaning of investment? What do you understand by the meaning of investment? Investment is not putting your money in bank, shares, bonds or gold. That is all savings. For all national income accounting purposes, savings means that part of the income which is not consumed, sacrificing today's consumption for future. What is the meaning of investment? Meaning of investment is creation of capital goods or something which is called as an asset. Creation of capital good or an asset. What do you mean by an asset? Asset का meaning क्या है? Good provides you utility. Asset is something which gives you a फ्यूचर बेनिफिट. आपने घर बनाया है, घर क्यों बनाया है कि फ्यूचर में भी उसमें रह सको. Something which gives a future benefit is something which is called as an asset. Asset is nothing but a capital good. Again, use the same definition. Capital good is what? What is capital good? Something which is used in production but not consumed. Similarly, asset is something which can be consumed again and again. That means it's as a future benefit. So investment in any economy means creation of capital goods or creation of asset. So if the savings can be converted into investment, then I have a benefit. But alone saving will never give me a benefit. Now how exactly it is giving me a benefit, understand this carefully. इससे थोड़ा दोनों मॉडल समझ आ देंगे. I have received a particular income. From this income, people have involved in consumption. People are involved in alone saving is done, that's bad. क्योंकि consumption कम हो जाएगा. Consumption कम होगा तो प्रोडक्शन कम होगा. प्रोडक्शन कम है तो फैक्टर्स कम एंगेज होंगे. फैक्टर्स कम होंगे तो जॉब्स और इनकम कम होगा. बट इफ आई यूज दिस सेविंग फॉर व्हाट पर्पस? दिस सेविंग इफ इट इज यूज्ड फॉर investment. Now what is happening here is, if the economy wants to improve its productivity, if it wants to improve the efficiency of usage of factors of production, it will have to sacrifice today's consumption. क्योंकि अगर सेविंग नहीं होगी तो इन्वेस्टमेंट नहीं होगी. एंड इन्वेस्टमेंट मीन्स व्हाट? addition to no infrastructure, no machines can be built if you don't have savings. So any economy will have to sacrifice today's consumption growth for a better future or better growth in the long run. Because when capital goods introduce, investment happens, what is going to happen? Creation of capital goods, that means your productivity will improve productivity, or efficiency is improving, or you have more capacity to produce. This is also increasing the productivity. Both of this means you will have better utilization of factors. Factors will be better utilized, you will have more jobs, more income. But this can only happen, investment and this can only happen in savings. तो आज होंगी, but benefit कब मिलेगा? So that means today you will witness a slowdown. So in a savings-led model of growth, the savings have to be converted into investment. This process of saving converting into investment, this process is called as process of capital formation. कितने effectively banks loan दे पा रहे हैं? Loans नहीं होगा तो capital formation नहीं होगा. Saving has to be converted into investment. Is this clear? Write down after this circular flow. Anything that reduces the flow of production, anything that reduces the flow of production thereby slowing down the output production, thereby slowing down output production, is termed as a leakage. Is termed as a leakage. For example, savings, imports, tax payments, etc. Imports, tax payments, etc. I'll explain both imports and tax payments also, how they are a leakage in the next line. Anything that increases the flow of production, anything that increases the flow of production is referred to as an investment, as an injection, is referred to as an injection. Example, investment, export payments, government expenditure, etc. In the next one, right? Savings are that part of income. Savings are that part of income that is not consumed, which means sacrificing today's consumption for future use. Sacrificing today's consumption for future. Sacrificing today's consumption for future. Is it clear meaning of savings? All these meaning is important because फिर वो savings कहाँ कहाँ invest हो सकती हैं, कौन use कर सकता है, that is both important. And this is what UPSC has asked in multiple statement type questions in prelims. Next, right? Investment means addition to capital goods, which means increasing the capacity to produce in future. It is also referred to as capital expenditure. It is also referred to as capital expenditure. हाँ, वो वहीं समझ तभी आएगा ना वहाँ से. स्टार्ट से ही अगर वो है बजट से, यू विल बी एबल टू क्रिएट अ डिफरेंस बिटवीन द टू. दिस इज व्हाई आई एम स्पेंडिंग सम टाइम हियर. The next slide, savings-led growth model. Savings-led growth model. In this you can draw this. Saving investments, productivity improve, more capacity, factors of production, income. But this is going to happen in future. तो आज improvement आपको sacrifice करनी पड़ेगी to improve your benefits. So if you want to create more roads, today's consumption will have to be sacrificed. This side. This is consumption-led growth, this is savings-led growth. Conversion of savings into investment is referred to as capital formation. Is the meaning of investment clear? Investment means creation of asset. Investment अब जो household पैसे डाल रहे हैं वो savings होगा. Household investment नहीं कर सकते हैं. Only one category of investment which the household does, that is creation of homes. तो जब भी हम building बनाएगा household तभी investment है, नहीं तो बाकी सब household सिर्फ saving कर रहा है. Investment कौन करेगा? Firm or even government. I'll explain it in detail what this investment will encompass when I discuss the expenditure method of GDP estimation. Is consumption and savings-led model clear? Now, through this you can also understand what is happening in, or what is in the last 5 years is happening in China. If I focus on the second model more, what is the problem it can create? If too much of my focus is on savings and investment-led, what could be the problem there? One, consumption will decrease, so today's growth will slow down considerably. What is the other problem? जॉब्स तो कैसे इन्वेस्टमेंट करें तो जॉब्स तो बन सकती हैं. आज का कंजम्पशन स्लो डाउन तो जरूर होगा, उतना नहीं होगा जितना एज कम्पेयर टू दिस, बट व्हाट इज द प्रॉब्लम? अदर प्रॉब्लम, लेस कंजम्पशन, लेस इनकम. लाइक लेस कंजम्पशन टुडे, दैट विल मीन कि ये स्लो डाउन होगा, राइट? तो ये तो पूरा चेन स्लो हो जाएगा. और क्या प्रॉब्लम है? Another problem in this is going to increase my production capacity in future. What if I create too much of assets which I don't require? मेरी इकोनॉमी में 5 रोड चाहिए थी, मैंने कितनी रोड बना दी? 10। अब वो 5 मैं यूज़ तो नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ, और प्लस मैंने आज की कंजम्पशन बहुत ज़्यादा स्लो डाउन कर दी. बोथ द थिंग्स टुगेदर वुड मीन व्हाट? टुडेज कंजम्पशन लीड्स टू टुडेज स्लो डाउन. फ्यूचर में ऑल्सो जो इंप्रूवमेंट होनी थी वो भी नहीं हुई बिकॉज आई कुड नॉट यूटिलाइज दैम. नाउ हाउ विल बी एबल टू पुट देम इन टू यूज व्हेन आई फोकस मोर ऑन कंजम्पशन? वो 5 रोड एक्स्ट्रा तभी यूटिलाइज कर सकता हूँ जब मैं कंजम्पशन अपनी बढ़ाऊँ. What the China market did is they started relying too much of investment led growth. तो उन्होंने बहुत ज़्यादा हाउसेज बना दिए, घर बनेंगे, इन्वेस्टमेंट हो रही है, हाउसिंग क्रिएटेड, बट दोज हाउसिंग डिड नॉट गेट अ लॉट ऑफ पीपल टू बाय. If there are not people to buy, that means I sacrifice today's consumption for future benefit, but even in the future I'm not getting any benefit because people did not have the income to buy. So if you create too much of investment and you're not able to utilize that investment, that means you have a problem. ये last 5 साल में चाइना का slowdown इसीलिए हो रहा है, because they focus too much on investment-led growth, which led to the slowdown of their consumption, and the assets which they created were not being able to put into use. If not been put into use, I will have a slowdown. Now, how will I come out of this slowdown? I will have to push the consumption. And how will I put the consumption, push the consumption? Through less savings. So consumption बढ़ानी है तो ये बोल दूँ कम सेविंग करो, ज़्यादा खाओ, बट और कैसे हो सकता है? Government starts giving money to the people either through direct transfers or the government creates jobs. Government consumption खुद बढ़ाए. अब government consumption कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं? I start creating assets and employ people. Or the government gives transfers to the people. Government gives taxation benefits on more consumption. मैं चीज़ें एक्साइज ड्यूटी कम कर दूँ व्हीकल्स पे तो लोग व्हीकल्स खरीदेंगे. तो वो गवर्नमेंट को फिर कंजम्पशन प्रमोट करनी है. गवर्नमेंट हैज इन्वेस्टमेंट, तो आई विल हैव टू क्रिएट जॉब्स. फॉर एग्जांपल, आई स्टार्ट एम्प्लॉइंग पीपल इन नंबर ऑफ एक्टिविटीज विच आई वांट टू गिव. देयर कैन इंक्रीज कंजम्पशन बिकॉज उन लोगों से मैं काम करवाऊंगा तो वो जॉब्स होंगी. सेकेंडली, आई कैन गिव देम ट्रांसफर्स डायरेक्टली. आई गिव देम 500 रुपीज, 2000 रुपीज एज आई स्टार्ट कंज्यूमिंग मोर. So I can do that if I start the consumption. So any economy will have to create a balance between consumption and saving. Now, if you talk about a developed economy would focus on which model more? US, for example, would focus on which model more? Consumption. Why? Yes, they have good amount of investment in capacity. जब मेरे को 10 रोड चाहिए और मेरे पास ऑलरेडी 10 रोड हैं, तो will I promote savings? I will not promote savings. I will promote consumption. But if still people do savings, where will we take this money? अगर बाय चांस किसी हाउस होल्ड ने सेविंग्स करी भी तो वो इन्वेस्ट करना चाहेगा. अब उनके बैंक्स में तो वो लोन अच्छा नहीं जाएगा, तो वेयर विल दे टेक द मनी? इन प्लेसेस वेयर दे रिक्वायर इन्वेस्टमेंट. दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड एज फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट. So savings in my economy is not required. So understand this. If you understand this, you will be able to analyze any growth, savings and consumption. Now, what has happened in US? In this economy, they want to promote more consumption. They don't want to promote more savings. Why? Because investment need is less. If need for investment is less, if people are saving, savings को convert करना है investment में, households put this savings in the bank and bank invest, give it to the firm as investment. यही process है. अगर इसकी नीड नहीं है, that means banks do not have people to give loans to. If banks do not have people to give loans to, will they give good deposit rate to households? अगर मेरा यहाँ पे लोन जाता ही नहीं किसी को, तो मेरे को पैसे चाहिए क्यों इनके? अगर इनके पैसे नहीं चाहिए, that means whatever savings they do, because investment is less, I will not be getting good return. So what will I do with this saving? I will take this saving to a place where the requirement for investment is more. India has consumption, but India also has investment. But जो मेरे को investment चाहिए वो मेरी saving से कम है. My investment requirement is I need to build 10 roads, but savings of my economy is money for 5 roads. So from where do I bring the extra investment? This money will come out as, this economy will take its money and bring it here. Why? Because investment requirement is more. If investment requirement is more, that means the return available will be more or less. Return available is more, so that means foreign savings will come in India as foreign investment. Is it clear why people get a lot of funds in India? Because their savings are not required in US. US is a consumption-led model of growth. I'm not saying completely required, not required, but less required. तो उनकी सेविंग्स कहाँ पे रूट होंगी? उनकी सेविंग्स रूट होंगी फॉरेन इन्वेस्टमेंट्स इन इंडिया. Is it making sense? We'll discuss how these foreign investments also has different components here. In a particular economy, growth कब होती है? ग्रोथ होगी इस मॉडल से या कुछ सैक्रिफाइस इससे होगा. अब ये मैं सेविंग्स तभी करवाऊंगा, आई विल डू दी सेविंग्स ओनली व्हेन आई हैव नीड फॉर इन्वेस्टमेंट. व्हाट इफ आई डोंट नीड इन्वेस्टमेंट? For example, this classroom is having a occupancy of 250. If I have 50 people here, do you think I need more investment? अगर ये क्लास चल रही है अभी, this is a occupancy of 250. Do you think I need to add 50 more chairs? Do I need 50 more chairs? Why? How do you know that? क्योंकि आपको पता है कंजम्पशन चाहिए, इन्वेस्टमेंट ऑलरेडी हो चुकी है. तो अगर इन्वेस्टमेंट मुझे नहीं चाहिए तो क्या सेविंग्स प्रमोट होंगी? 50 चेयर्स के लिए मुझे लोन चाहिए. अब लोन तब भी मिलेगा जब सेविंग्स होंगी, बट जब 50 चेयर्स ही नहीं चाहिए तो जो सेव कर रहा है उसे बेनिफिट मिलेगा. बेनिफिट इस इकोनॉमी को कब मिलेगा? इस क्लास को जब 20 लोग से यहाँ पर 250 लोग हैं, दैट मीन्स कंजम्पशन. So US wants more consumption. Why? Because it has already created a lot of capital goods. So it does not promote savings. If it does not promote savings, it will focus on consumption. किसी भी इकोनॉमी में जब इन्वेस्टमेंट हो चुकी है या दे हैव एडिक्वेट, दे विल नॉट प्रमोट दिस, दे विल प्रमोट दिस. सिंपल सी बात है, बैंक लोन ही नहीं दे पाएगा तो वो कोई सेव ही क्यों करेगा? इज इट मेकिंग सेंस? विच इकोनॉमी विल रिक्वायर मोर इन्वेस्टमेंट्स? डेवलपिंग इकोनॉमीज वुड रिक्वायर मोर investment because they have a lack of least developed economy. तो और प्रॉब्लम है. सिंपल एग्जाम्पल वो जो टोल्ड यू, वो छत कैसे डल रही है? एक जगह लेबर है, एक जगह मशीन है, और एक जगह इतनी एडवांस मशीन है कि लेबर की कम जरूरत है. डिपेंडिंग ऑन व्हाट टाइप ऑफ अ टेक्नोलॉजी एंड हाउ मच टेक्नोलॉजी और इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर यू हैव, इट डिटरमाइंस हाउ मच सेविंग्स यू नीड. दीज सेविंग्स कैन बी कॉम्प्लीमेंटेड फ्रॉम सेविंग्स फ्रॉम आउटसाइड. इज दिस क्लियर? यू कैन राइट दोस इन वन लाइन. In case an economy witnesses a saving investment gap, in case an economy witnesses a saving investments gap, where saving investment gap, where the need for investment is much more than the savings available. Need for investment is much more than the savings available. This gap would be filled by savings from rest of the world, it be filled by savings from rest of the world, which comes in the form of foreign investments, aid or grants. Investment, aid, grants or loans. I'll explain the difference between all these three. Investment में ये होगा कि आपको asset का control मिलता है. Loan में you get a liability which you have to return. And if you don't have to return the loan, that is aid or grant. There are three forms in which this comes. Investment, where someone will take control of your asset. For example, outside company has bought land in India. ये investment है. Outside company has given you a loan. That is, you have to repay. इसमें asset का control नहीं है, loan repayment है. If the loan does not have to be repaid, that is aid, grant or a donation. These are the three ways how your saving investment gaps can be filled. Is this clear? Consumption and saving led growth. Most of your analysis lies on consumption and saving itself. Now, this process, what we talked about was saving has to be converted into investment. This process of saving into investment is called as capital formation. Now, when your investment has happened, how much investment would be required to generate output? Savings were converted into investment. This is nothing but capital formation. But उस investment को आपको output भी generate करना है. how much of investment would be required to generate output of 1 unit? That is understood through a variable which is called as capital output ratio. Capital output ratio says how much is the level of investment required to generate output worth 1 unit. This is how much is the level of investment to generate unit of 1 output. This is what is the meaning of कैपिटल आउटपुट रेशियो, कि कितना कैपिटल इन्वेस्टमेंट चाहिए कि हमारा आउटपुट जनरेशन 1 यूनिट से हो जाए. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, इफ आई एम स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम स्क्रैच, इफ आई वॉन्ट टू बिल्ड अ स्टील इंडस्ट्री, country A has a capital output ratio of 15, country B has a capital output ratio of 20. They are producing something steel. So what is the meaning of A is 15 and B is 20? B has more capital output ratio as compared to A. What do you mean by this? That in this country B, more money is required to generate 1 unit of steel. That means if they are producing the same quantity, same commodity, B is less productive on using its resource. A उसे better utilize कर रहा है. That means B has more efficiency. Now why this efficiency could be more? Why this efficiency could be more? Better capital क्या होता है? What you can say is I have better technology. What else? I have skilled labor. I have better infrastructure, or I have government or administration capacity is better. ये चारों रीजन होंगे तो हम we can say that efficiency is more. How do we know efficiency is more? क्योंकि B का पैसा ज़्यादा लग रहा है, A का पैसा कम लग रहा है. जिसका कम पैसा लग रहा है, that means they are more efficient. So if I want to know how much of capital is required to generate output of 1 unit, that is explained through a variable which is called as capital output ratio. This is an average value. Okay? Average कितना investment चाहिए for average 1 output. But if I want to know how much additional capital is required, I'm already producing 10 units. 11th unit को produce करने में कितना चाहिए होगा? That particular concept is called as incremental capital output ratio. I am already producing 10. If I want to produce 1 extra unit, how much of extra capital would be required? So if 20,000 is something I required for 1 unit, अब 10 units already produce हो रहे हैं, 10 से 11 unit पे जाना है, तो extra capital कितना चाहिए होगा? That is your, is this clear? Write down this. Capital output ratio is the amount of capital. Capital output ratio is the amount of capital required to produce output worth 1 unit, or output of 1 unit, required to produce output of 1 unit. Whereas incremental capital output ratio is the additional amount of capital required to increase output by 1 unit. Additional amount of capital required to increase output by 1 unit. You can write down these two formulas. Capital output ratio is, use the term K for capital and Y for output. Capital required for 1 unit output, this is average, and this is delta K by delta Y is additional capital required. Now if a country has more COR than the other, what is the meaning of that statement? If a country B, same example if I use, if a country B has capital output ratio of 5, whereas a country A has a capital output ratio of 8. What do you mean by this statement? What is the implication of this? One thing I can say is either B is better एफिशिएंसी। एक तो ये कंक्लूजन हो सकता है. व्हाट कुड बी द अदर कंक्लूजन फ्रॉम दिस? जरूरी नहीं है कि सिर्फ एफिशिएंसी हो. फॉर एग्जांपल, a particular book was given to two people, one read it in 2 hours and the other read it in 4 hours. दोनों का आउटकम सेम है लर्निंग का, बट आई कैन से एफिशिएंसी वाज लेस. This could be one conclusion. Someone read it in 2 hours, the other one read it in 4 hours. If the outcome was same, one person is reading better than the other. That means he is better efficient. उसकी reading capacity ज़्यादा है, reading speed ज़्यादा है, what language understanding comprehension is more. This is what can be said. What could be the other interpretation of this? One, I said B is reading it in 2 hours and A is reading it in 4 hours. One conclusion from this is B is efficient than A if the outcome is same. Outcome हम मान रहे दोनों का same है. What else could be the interpretation? More skills, more, that is efficient only. Efficiency के आपके reason बहुत सारे हो सकते हैं. और other thing could be what book they are reading. हो सकता है A को आपने बुक दी है 500 पेज की, B को आपने बुक दी है 100 पेज की. It's because not they are producing the same output. It is in what sector they have invested. If B has invested in producing more software and A has produced more, तो उसके पैसे automatically ज़्यादा लगेंगे because steel is a capital intensive sector. So if the project is same, then I can say it is more efficient. But if the projects are different, then I can't say efficiency is what I'm getting to know. So that means capital output ratio is not a conclusive proof of efficiency. It just represents what is the capital intensity. या तो वो poorly use कर रहा है अगर same project है, but या वो invest कर रहा है capital intensive projects में. That means COR can only help me tell how much intensity of capital is in a country. It is not necessarily telling me what the efficiency is. क्योंकि किसी की capital output ratio इसलिए भी ज़्यादा हो सकती है, उन्होंने ऐसे सेक्टर में पैसे लगाए हैं जहाँ पे फर्स्ट यूनिट को आने में बहुत टाइम लगेगा. Software industry would require less investment to produce output of 1 unit, but the steel industry would require huge investment to provide you output of 1 unit. That means COR or incremental capital output ratio is not a conclusive proof of poor efficiency. It is also an indicator of capital intensity. Is this clear? You can write this down. COR/ICOR is not a conclusive proof of efficient or inefficient use of capital. Is not a conclusive proof of efficient or inefficient use of capital. Rather, it reflects the intensity of capital. Is this clear? That means if in a particular economy growth might be dependent on one, what is the rate of capital formation? What is the rate of capital formation? What do we mean by rate of capital formation? How much of savings are converted into investment? It may also depend on what is your, that means how much of investment is required to produce more output. Saving to investment is your capital formation. Investment से कितना output बन रहा है, that is your core. So you can write down for any particular economy, growth is dependent on its rate of capital formation. Growth is dependent on rate of its capital formation and COR/ICOR, core/ICOR. So you can write down this savings to investment to output. Saving to investment is what is called as capital. Investment to output is your Is this clear? Any doubts here? Now you could also relate why the government of India wants people to save in formal bank accounts. Why do they want people to save in formal bank accounts or even in post office? Why don't they want the people to save in any other form? For example, they don't want people to save in cash, real estate or gold. Why? If savings is done in the form of gold, real estate or cash, that means capital formation will not happen. Capital formation will only happen when the savings comes into the formal financial system. This is why the government will focus on creation of financial inclusion. We'll end with this term. What is the meaning of financial inclusion? Delivery of financial service. What financial services? Banking. Financial inclusion means availability and that means choice of formal financial services. What is the meaning of formal financial services? What do you mean by formal financial services? Financial services definitely what? Banking. Banking means what? I'll explain financial service also in detail, but just to give a broad reference. ये तो financial service का meaning हो गया. What do you mean by formal? Formal, informal. Not government, but regulated by, ताकि आपका जो terms हैं वो extractive या वो parasitic ना हो कि आपको 25% पे इंटरेस्ट मिल रहा है या पैसे वापस नहीं आ रहे हैं, all that. That is a regulated formal means regulated financial services. Is this clear? If you've written this line, saving to investment, have you noted this down? Below this, right? The government promotes savings in the formal financial system, promotes savings in the formal financial system because savings in the form of cash, gold or real estate gold, cash or real estate cannot be channelized as investments in the economy. Which means the rate of capital formation would reduce. Rate of capital formation would reduce. Is this clear? In the next one, right? Financial inclusion. Financial inclusion. Financial inclusion means the process of ensuring availability, access, and quality of formal financial services to the population. With special focus on vulnerable groups and weaker sections of the society. Special focus on vulnerable groups and weaker sections of the society. Is this clear? Savings, investment and capital output ratio. What is the meaning of access, availability and choice? इनका मीनिंग क्या है? इजी का मतलब क्या? एक्सेस प्रोवाइड करना मतलब इजी करना ना, इजी क्या? सी अंडरस्टैंड, अवेलेबिलिटी मीन्स कि वहां पर बैंक होना चाहिए, एक्सेस मीन्स कि वहां पर बैंक एक्सेसिबल होना चाहिए इन टर्म्स ऑफ, first is availability means the service should be available, right? What is access? Access means the service, say the physical access means the timing, कि कितना आपको टाइम लग रहा है वहाँ पहुँचने में और कितना easy है कि whether you are able to get the product or not. Second would be what? Economic access, whether it is affordable or not. एक्सेस मीन्स ऑल द थ्री थिंग्स. पहले तो वो बैंक होना चाहिए, वो बैंक घर के पास कितनी है और वहाँ पे कितना टाइम लग रहा है आपको एक्सेस करने का, दैट इज योर फिजिकल एक्सेस टू द सर्विस. द इकोनॉमिक एक्सेस टू द सर्विस वुड मीन व्हाट? whether the product is affordable or not. There's no point opening an HDFC bank when the rate of interest on the loan is going to be 15%. आप एंटर ही नहीं कर पा रहे हो जब वो बोल रहे हैं मिनिमम अकाउंट 10,000 का है. तभी तो गवर्नमेंट का स्कीम इज व्हाट? प्रधानमंत्री जन धन योजना. जीरो बैंक अकाउंट. Zero bank account makes it more affordable and it is being spread mostly through the public system because उनके banks available हैं और उनकी branches भी ज़्यादा हैं. Timely 6 days a week there is opening. This is what is physical access. Second is economic access and the third is social access. What do you mean social access? No discrimination on the lines of caste, religion, gender or creed. No discrimination means ensuring social access. कि आपने social marker या identity पे उनको discriminate नहीं किया. So access, yes, social justice would be physical access, economic access and social access. Availability means पहले वहाँ बैंक होना चाहिए, बैंक के बाद ये access होना चाहिए. What do you mean by quality or choice? बैंक है, deposits. Yes. Quality means you have significant amount of competition from which you can choose. This will ensure that you are not just stuck to one product. कि अब दुकान खुली है, product है, but एक यही product है, आपको यही लेना पड़ेगा. There is no choice with respect to the financial services you are getting. For example, you only opened one SBI bank. This is the insurance which you are going to get. This is what deposit you are going to get. But the moment another PNB, HDFC, Canara Bank or HDFC opens, अब आपके पास choice है. अब ज़रूरी नहीं है आप SBI से लोन लो या SBI के पास सेव करो. जो बैंक आपको सही लग रहा है वो सेव करो. This is meaning access, availability and choice. This is what is the meaning of financial. And we are talking about formal. Formal, it's clear why it is regulated. You need protection. It has to be regulated. Action regulated by the RBI. RBI, or you can say regulated by RBI or government. Unregulated तो फिर informal money lending हो जाएगी. Unregulated तो हमारे कंट्रोल में नहीं है. आपने किसको कितना सेव करा है, किससे कितने पैसे लिए, हमें पता ही नहीं है, तो हम आपको कैसे बचाएंगे. अगर आज आपके बैंक अकाउंट में से पैसे कट गए बिकॉज ऑफ एनी पर्टिकुलर स्कैम, बैंक इज रिस्पॉन्सिबल फॉर दैट. हु सेज दैट? RBI. कि अगर आपने कुछ नहीं किया है और डिजिटली कुछ स्कैम से पैसे निकल गए, बैंक उस चीज़ का जिम्मेवार हो, आप नहीं. अगर आपने कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयर किया देन तो इट्स योर रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी. इफ इट्स नॉट, द रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी इज ऑन द बैंक हु गिव्स यू दिस प्रोटेक्शन. प्रोटेक्शन कम्स फ्रॉम, उन्हीं से तो बचाना है. इनफॉर्मल मनी लेंडर्स ही तो आपको 25% इंटरेस्ट पे पैसे दे रहे हैं. बैंक आपको पर्सनल लोन भी 13% 14% पे देता है. इज दिस क्लियर? What is financial inclusion? Savings led, consumption led. Tomorrow we'll continue with this discussion. I'll introduce both government and external sector, and also we'll discuss the concept of GDP. Tomorrow we'll have a complete class. Thank you. Just revise all of this. If you have doubts, we'll discuss them first. Thank you. And if you have any problems with the pace of the class, you're not able to understand, do let me know. so that we can pace it accordingly. Since I'm expecting you know the meaning of production and all of these items, this is why the pace is slightly more, although I'm giving you the definition of basics also. If you're not comfortable, let me know, we'll pace the class accordingly. Just revise all of this, we'll build on this tomorrow. Thank you.